everyone. Welcome back to Give Me 5, book review and author interview channel, your space to discover powerful stories and the brilliant minds behind them. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome a very special guest, award-winning journalist, animal advocate, and now a children's author, Michele C. Hollow. You may have seen her byline in the New York Times, The Guardian, Inside Your Cat's Mind, and many more. Michele has a true gift for storytelling, and her newest children's book, Jurassic Girl, The Adventures of MaryAnning, brings to life a riveting journey of a young girl whose fossil discovery would spark a scientific revolution. The inspiring historical fiction based on in-depth research and imagination celebrates courage, curiosity, and the often overlooked contributions of girls in science. Michele joins me today to talk about the moment she made the leap from fact to fiction and how MaryAnning's story continues to inspire young readers today. Hey, Michele, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I'm very happy to be here.
That's awesome. I'm so excited to dive into this and get to know more about you and the book. So are you ready for question number 1?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So Michele, you've written for major outlets like the New York Times, The Guardian, and Inside Your Cat's Mind. What made you want to transition from journalism to writing children's historical fiction?
I've done a few work for hire books. That's where you just get a fee and you're done. And it's pretty easy. This part is brand new because I have an agent, I have a publisher, and I have to do a lot of the publicity, which as a journalist is very different from public relations and marketing are very, very different from journalism. I prefer journalism, I'll just be honest. I found out about MaryAnning. I used to blog about animals, and I still write about animals on and off. I grew up loving animals. I grew up in the Bronx in New York, and my mom, when I was 12, enrolled me in zoology classes at the Bronx Zoo. So I was the youngest kid there. I was actually the only kid there. It was mainly older people that, or people my parents' age that took these classes. And we got to hang out with the zookeepers and the zoologists, very, very cool people. And I got to interact with some animals, and I loved it. In the summer, I would spend my summers at Central Park Zoo in Manhattan, doing tour guiding and standing in front of like the hippopotamus cage and talking about the wonders of hippos, because I think that they are very, very cool. And, hippopotamus means river horse. I love horses. I mean, I don't think there are any animals I don't like. Maybe a mosquito, and I think.
Okay, I'm with you on that. Mosquitoes, sadly, they have to die.
Yeah. But I've always just adored being around animals. I find them fascinating. And I wanted to write books for middle graders, and I wanted to write books about somebody interesting. And I love fiction. I love nonfiction. Fiction is amazing when you go into these worlds that don't exist, but learning about real people that did something amazing. And then sometimes they might have had problems with MaryAnning. She, at 12 years old, 12, that's pretty amazing. She discovered this 17-foot ichthyosaurus. This was in 1811 on the Jurassic coast where she lived. She grew up in a very, she was very poor family. When she was very little, her dad gave her, she was about 5, gave her his tools. He was a cabinet maker. And he also would have preferred to be a fossil hunter, not a cabinet maker. So she was influenced and learned a lot from her dad. And here at the time, extinction was a brand new concept because people did not believe that species died out. So imagine discovering something like this, no one ever seeing anything like this before. And then the men in the scientific community said, no, you're a girl. That's the first thing. Girls in science at that time, and even today, there's some problems, don't always get credit for their work. The person who she sold the fossil to, imagine this 12-year-old girl at the seaside, working with tourists, selling the fossils that she found. And most of the fossils were very small. Here's this big 17-foot fossil, and she found it in two parts, the body and then the head. She said that she found it, and she did, and there were witnesses and such, but the person she sold it to got written up in all of the scientific journals saying that he found it. And what I had found really interesting, my book came out in September, and I started doing some school tours, mainly to elementary and middle grade students. And a lot of the girls come up to me at the end with fists raised, and they say girl power. Like, they get it now. And it shouldn't have to be that way, but that's the way it is. So.
That's the world we live in.
Mm-hmm. But I fell in love with Mary, and I loved her story.
So that was an amazing inspiration that led you to writing this book. And tell me now, how did you balance the historical accuracy with the creative storytelling when imagining her thoughts and emotions? That
was a bit difficult. I've written this book over maybe about 6-7 times.
Wow.
First draft does not do it. And that was the other thing that struck me by doing these school tours. A lot of the teachers and librarians at schools say, can you please emphasize the importance of rewriting? And I have 2 sons. They're older now, but I remember when they had to do a school assignment, it was like, I'm done. It's like, no, you're not. You need to reread it and go back, because there are errors in there. I mean, it's very rare that your first or second draft is perfect. It depends what it is. But anyway, I just loved that she, she triumphed, and with the story about being a journalist, it had to be correct. It had to be. I didn't want to make up anything about her. And I did some research. I read The Fossil Hunter by Shelley Emling. It's a biography about MaryAnning. And through that book, I found out that in the town of Lyme Regis, where Mary grew up and spent her whole life, which is part of the Jurassic Coast in the UK, there's a museum there, the Lyme Regis Museum, and a couple of years ago, they opened a MaryAnning wing. So I did some digging, and I contacted the research team, and I just was sending them lots. I asked first, I said, can I send you a bunch of questions? And it was a bunch. And they were very, very generous with their knowledge. Because as I said, I wanted this to be correct. But then on the other hand, and I didn't want to just write a biography. Biographies are great. I just wanted it to read more like a story to engage young readers. She was very... At that time, as I said, fossil hunting, here's what I should say, sorry. She was not, I couldn't interview her. She had died many, many years ago. When I do a story as a journalist, I interview someone and I get my answers and I immediately type out what they're saying. I couldn't do that. I wanted this, and on the introduction, when you open the book, it says all of the dialogue is made up. So that's my confession. I wanted to be open about that, because obviously there's no such thing as a time machine, and I can't go back and interview her. So all of the information, yes, she did find this fossil. She came from a poor family. Her family life seemed very interesting. I mean, she was very close to her father, who, nurtured her interest in science. She was self-educated, because back then you needed money to go to school. Mainly, you had to be wealthy to have an education. So she was self-taught, and she read a lot. And she had a good close friend, Elizabeth Philpott, who was older than her, had some money, and had a great library. So she read as much as she could, and she wanted to know and learn. And, I just found that very admirable.
Oh, absolutely. Especially at the age of 12, just to be, so she was obviously passionately driven to do this and had a great interest, because most 12-year-olds, I don't know, maybe that day and age, now, with all the distractions they have, but back then, maybe study was, and following your passions was a little, maybe more encouraged than it is today. I don't know.
Well, imagine also being at the seaside, and it's not the most safe place in the sense that there's huge cliffs where rocks can fall. There were some, thankfully near misses, being swept into the ocean. And what she wore back then, women and girls wore long ankle length dresses. And she had her bonnet, but can you imagine like climbing a large cliff in a dress like that? I mean, and getting dirt in her fingernails, like she didn't care about that. And that's something also I kind of admire. I was never big on makeup or anything like that, but she was all about the hunt. She wanted to find fossils. She found the discoveries fascinating, and she loves science. And, I can't argue with that. I agree with her. So.
Oh, absolutely. I love science as well. So you went and researched, and you spoke with paleontologists and historians, right? So was there anything surprising that you learned about Mary during your research process that didn't make it into the book?
I think pretty much I focused on her first major discovery. So after what's in the book, there's a list of her other discoveries. I really thought that first at age 12, I thought that was pretty remarkable, a 12-year-old finding such a unique fossil and then being told, no, you're wrong, and proving that she's right and triumphing and becoming she's known as the mother of paleontology. They know her better in the UK because she's from there. And last year they came out with a MaryAnning postage stamp there. So, as I said, she's known better there. But I wanted to focus on that period because I just thought it was so interesting, and I didn't want to just do, and then she discovered this, and then she discovered that. But she's in the book, a good portion of it. She's at the seaside digging and searching and looking, but then looking for the rest of the ichthyosaurus. That was also a big part of it. So, I learned a lot by talking to people like I do every day. That's a nice thing about journalism. It's continued education. That's how I look at it, because you talk to people all the time and you constantly learn. I've always wanted to, when I was a kid, either be a journalist, writer, or a veterinarian, because again, I love animals. And I have a lot of respect for people in that industry.
Oh, absolutely. So transitioning from journalism and the genres that you wrote for, how did you go about bringing a fossil discovery to life in a way that's exciting and accessible for children?
When you write for children, you should never talk down to them. My husband works he's now in IT, but he was a teaching artist, and I've joined him in the classroom a few times, and you never, ever, ever talk down to kids. They know, they'll see it right away. Some people said, oh, there's some big words in your story, and I don't think there really are. I don't think you need a dictionary to read this. I respect kids. I like, it's a great audience, and they want to know about this, and they love dinosaurs. It's just amazing how much. That's the thing. I ask them immediately when I'm in a school, how many people love dinosaurs, and all the hands go up. And I had the good luck of interviewing a paleontologist. I usually write about health lately, but I did a story for Next Avenue about taking your kids fossil hunting, because there are lots of places all around the country, all around the world, where you can go fossil hunting. And I interviewed this woman. She was originally from New Jersey. She, like all kids, grew up loving dinosaurs. And I mean, I have one of my kids' dinosaurs right here on my desk. And she learned about dinosaurs in school for like a couple of weeks in elementary school, and then you move on. And she forgot about it. That was the end. And in high school, there was one of those animatronic dinosaur exhibits in New Jersey. She went and she said, I have to become a paleontologist. So she's talking to me about her worst day on the job. This is her worst day. It's amazing. She said, you're out in the field. She's in Montana at this huge park, and it starts to hail. So she covers herself with a blue tarp, and not that long out there, she finds these enormous dinosaur bones. And she said, this is her words, dag nabbit, how am I going to carry this out of here? So she marked the area, and, she got her crew to come back and get it. But can you imagine that being the worst day?
And that's your worst day, is making the discovery. And how are you going to carry it out of there?
Yeah, that's her worst day. I mean, that's fascinating. And kids know that. And I like that also, doing all this like learning and what I didn't know. My son's dinosaur toy makes this or if you watch Jurassic Park, the dinosaur sounds supposedly are not natural. They're more guttural, more deep, and kind of scary in a way. But, that's what we're just learning now. We're still learning about them. And then the fact that learning about how many of today's birds are evolved from dinosaurs. I mean, that's so I tell the kids, you want to see a dinosaur? Go outside, see that pigeon? That was, it's evolved from a dinosaur. That's pretty fascinating.
That's very fascinating. Yeah. And lizards and like reptiles, alligators, they're all evolved from dinosaurs. Don't you think?
I don't know about that. I do know for sure that the birds, for definitely not every single species, but there are thousands of birds out there that the pigeon here, just the poor lowly pigeon, that just evolved from a dinosaur. The good thing about some of these animals where they were smaller, they were able to escape, when the asteroid hit, they were meat eaters because there weren't that many plants. There were things that they did that made them survive and change, evolve. And I just think it's fascinating. I mean, when I go, especially if I'm in New York and I see like hundreds of pigeons, I'm like, dinosaurs, yay! So I'm a little geeky about that.
Yeah, I'm a geek too. I get it. So what's your approach to writing for young readers when it comes to these complex topics like gender bias and scientific exclusion?
Just be honest. That's all. Kids can tell if you're lying. They can. I don't know if it's because I have two kids. I mean, they're older now, but you just be truthful, and you should be as open with them as possible. You should let them know, and they should explore. And yeah, I would love it if my kid read everything that I read and loved exactly what I did. I realize I can't do that. But I think it's important that they understand. And one of my kids sometimes accompanies me when we just did a talk and one of the local schools had an event where they had 20 authors, and we had a table, and he helped me with, we set up, we had paper on the ground, like a big sheet of paper roll, and he was helping kids draw dinosaurs and talking to them about that. But if there's something about gender, about whatever, it's just being open and honest and explaining what's true.
Yeah, I agree completely. Just like you said, don't talk down to them. Just be honest with them in vocabulary they can understand. I'm curious, though. You said your husband's a teacher and is teaching children. Did he help you with some of the narrative that was going into the book?
He was a teaching artist, so he wasn't like an actual teacher. He worked as a teaching artist, and so he went into schools throughout the country. He actually, when I met him, he was a puppeteer. So that was very cool. And he actually said to me, I'm going to find an Ichthyosaurus puppet. I'm like, no, you're not. And he did. So he actually came with me on one of these events too. And I am an introvert. I'll be admitting this. I prefer asking the questions. Like, I'm grateful to be here, but I don't like always being the center of attention. I'm happy to give that role to my husband. That is great. But he had the puppet, and he was because kids, it's really interesting, or anybody, adults, when you are operating a puppet, the people that are watching do not engage with the puppeteer. They are talking to that puppet. Whether it's a marionette, a hand and rod, whatever, they are just fascinated, and they talk to the puppet. Adults, kids. So he's been very helpful. He does IT now. He designed my website, Jurassic Girl. I'm very lucky. Very lucky.
Yeah, somebody in the family that can do IT. You're very lucky.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, Michele, Jurassic Girl highlights themes like resilience, friendship, and found family. Which of those themes resonate most with your personality?
I like the found family. Friends are very, very important. I mean, all of them are just the difficulties that she had and people saying no, because kids get that a lot. No, come on, forget about that. That's not how it's done. But a lot of times they're right. And Mary was right. MaryAnning was definitely right. She did this amazing thing. And she wasn't going to back down, and she triumphed. And that's what got me about her story. That's what I wanted to relate and related to children.
So why do you think MaryAnning's contribution to science has been overlooked for so long?
Partly because she was female. I mean, I belong to, I write about health. And so I belong to a science writers group on Facebook. And sometimes women get on the channel there, and they are on the Facebook page, and they say, it's been hard as a female, getting credit, getting into scientific journals. I mean, that's not the type of writing I do. I do journalism, but for women, it is harder. It's still, as I said, the girls come up to me, fourth graders. It just this. The first time that happened, I was just blown away, and it's still the fact that they came up and they're with the fists raised, and they're like girl power, and they know there's some differences there. It's some difficulties that they have to overcome.
Yeah, it's really interesting that even in fourth grade, they're realizing this dichotomy of, it's a man's world, and, women aren't recognized for what they do. So I really love the fact that this book is speaking to STEM, the sciences, and empowering young girls to read this book and say, hey, if Mary could do it all those years ago, right? So can I. So that's very inspiring.
And boys too. I mean, we have her father in the book. We have her brother. Mary's mother, Molly, described Mary more as having her head in the clouds like her father. They were dreamers. Her brother, Joseph, was practical like her mother. They were very poor. They mainly survived on porridge for dinner. Their house flooded because they were close to the ocean. And, there were a lot of near misses throughout her life, with the elements and such. Mm-hmm. But her brother also loved fossil hunting, and he was also very instrumental in helping her. But he became an upholsterer, And I do talk about that in the book. And they were very lucky that they lived in Lyme Regis, because if you read any of Dickens, it's quite scary about children working in these factories, like in London, and working 12, sometimes 14-hour days. And if you mess up, you can get whipped. I mean, it was a totally different time. And, you needed to work, but it was also very scary. I couldn't imagine, or you had to stand at your station for all that time. And you had to do it. Yes, you should do your job correctly, but these are kids and you got to give them a break, but that didn't happen. So Joseph being in Lyme Regis, and it seemed like his employer was a kind person. But he also loved the hunt. So, I usually connect with the girls, but sometimes the boys will come up to me, like this one at one of the talks that I gave at this school. This boy came up to me and he said, "I'd like to buy your book." And I said, "What's your name?" And he goes, "Can you make it out to Jessica, my girlfriend?" I was like, I was a fourth grader. But he said he was going to read the book, and hopefully he will. I don't want to write just for girls or just for boys. As I said, I'm a boy mom, but
yeah, I'm a boy mom and I'm a boy grandma. So I have two grandsons. So yeah, I totally get that. But I think it's great because it's a 12-year-old in growing up during times that are completely different from now. We don't have the tool. They didn't have the tools available and things that they do now and the research. So she's out there as a 12-year-old making this discovery and being brave and having courage. And I really feel that is such a huge part of this story for sure, is to give young people courage to follow their dreams and follow their passion and not let anyone stop them. So what do you hope kids will take away from Mary's story, especially girls and boys, for those who feel like outsiders in science?
If someone says, "No, you can't," I want them to say, "Yes, you can." I really, really want them to say, "Yes, I can do this, and I want to pursue this." That's the way it should be.
Absolutely. And I agree with you because when I see the younger children, because I'm a retired educator as well. So when I see the children saying, "I can't do that," or "That's too hard," or, "My mom says I have to be this," or "I've got to be that," that really frustrates me. And of course, I want to sit them down and give them the long, "Why can't you?" talk, but it's not my place, of course, but to inspire them as best as I can in a classroom, right?
I mean, it's hard. One of my young kid, he's in college and he's like, "I think I want to major in art." And my first thought was, "Oh gosh, no." And that's terrible. That is terrible on me. That was a terrible thing. And I did not say that to him. I was like, "Okay, we'll have to figure out, you'll have to figure out and work with your advisors and such." So,
right. Because we know that maybe the artist life or acting route is a tough life. It's hard life. So if you can give them that awareness and they can make an educated decision about, following their passions and what that looks like, then why not? Right.
Sure. Or I want to be a writer. It's like, oh gosh. It's not always easy, but it doesn't have to be an easy path. It should be something that you enjoy. To me, science when I was younger was difficult. I loved history. I still do. And I loved my English writing classes. Science was difficult, but I was going to push on because I got to volunteer at the zoo and be amongst all of these different kinds of animals. And it was just a joy. And if you love something, even if it's difficult, you will forge ahead, and you have to do that.
Oh, absolutely. And hey, by the way, Michele, do you have a copy of your book you can flash across the screen?
I do. I don't know if you can you see it? Okay. Yeah, no, I was very pleased with Ulysses Press. They did a nice job on the cover. I was just very happy. So.
With the Ichthyosaurus. Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about inspiration and impact now. So if MaryAnning could read your book today, what would you hope she'd say? I
really would hope that she would like it. obviously I don't have a time machine. I can't go back in time. I'm more of a realist, but yeah, it would be great if I could meet her. But I know that's not ever going to happen. But I would hope that she would find that it was inspirational and that she could see. A lot of people who told me that they've read the books, that they could see that I really like her. I mean, as a journalist, when I interview somebody, I leave my feelings out of the story. It's not about me. And this book isn't about me either. But obviously, I spent a lot of time with her as far as the history goes and her family, to just learn by dealing with the researchers, going back and forth, sending them numerous questions, and letting them know that they could see. People say after our talks, you really loved her. And I do. I really do. I've never met her. That would never happen. But she seemed to be such a great inspirational person. And as a journalist, I really love talking to people that do good things, that help, the environment, that help people in health or help animals. That's important.
Oh, absolutely. So was there a point when you were writing the book and you were doing the research about Mary and her journey that you felt like maybe for a moment you were connected to her?
I didn't feel anything like woo, she's here, or her spirit or anything like that. I am a realist. I don't know. It would be great if I could have done some sort of, I don't believe in, well, I didn't think that I could talk to her, but I could talk to people that knew about her. And that, again, coming from the journalist point of view, I found out this story about her and thought, I got to find out more. I have to read more. I have to talk to the historians, the researchers that know of her past. And then to also talk to people about dinosaurs and paleontology, just to learn that. That was something that's pretty much new to me. I mean, I had a general knowledge when I was little. We went to the Museum of Natural History. I recently went there. I saw the Stegosaurus, which is something like over 80% Stegosaurus, meaning a lot of what we see are parts of animals and then the rest are man-made. So it's put together. I did not know that either. I didn't know about the sounds that the dinosaurs made, that they really are. They're not like what you hear in Jurassic Park, that they are more guttural, more deeper. I just, it's fun when you write a story and it's like, yay, I didn't know that. this is fun to learn. As I said, journalism is continued education for me. So.
Oh, absolutely. You pick up those little nuggets of wisdom and it just expands your world. That's amazing. So who were your personal role models growing up and how did they compare to Mary's journey?
Oh, wow. That's a toughie. I mean, I'm really lucky. I have good parents. My mom, she was basically a housewife until my brother and I were in grade school. She went back to college and got her teaching degree and became a teacher. So I love the fact that she, any place that we've gone, kids come up to her. She's 93 now, so she's slowed down a lot. And when I call her or when I'm in her neighborhood, everybody knows her because she was a teacher and she was a good teacher. So she was definitely a role model. My dad loved books. In our house, it was an apartment building. We had books in front of books on the shelves. If it was your birthday, a holiday, whatever, you got a book. You didn't get anything else. And if you came as a friend to my house for the first time, and if my dad was there, he would say, so, Elizabeth, what are you reading? You're not reading anything right now? What are you interested in? And then you would come away with a book. No, this was like, like, how dare you not read? It was really important. So family, people that I've worked with, some people that I've interviewed, just seeing what other people do, reading a lot, reading as much as I have the bug too. I really like to read. And the librarians are great that are in my town, because they, if they know that you're interested in something, they'll let you know what's in and what you might want to read. So, and we have.
So if a teacher or librarian wanted to use Jurassic Girl in the classroom, what discussions or activities would you love to see happen?
Actually, on my website that my husband designed called JurassicGirl.com, there is a section for educators, and you can see it on the front page. And there's a study guide that you can look at, and it talks about the book. It has, in addition to talking about the book, it has vocabulary, like just what's everything from what does dinosaur mean, like it translates to terrible lizard. There's questions for discussions about the book, which start from like, which is true, what when Mary was a baby, was she really struck by lightning, and how did that, so there's questions that relate to MaryAnning's story, and there are the answer keys. And there's also a few graphs here about writing your own story and how to do that, or writing even a haiku. I love haikus, they're just fun. Dinosaur jokes. So kids can relate to this, and I think that they might have a good time doing some of this stuff if they find something that they're really passionate about.
So is there a dinosaur joke in that book?
Not in the book, but on the website. I mean, they're really corny. Let's see, what do we have here? Why did Tyrannosaurus Rex cross the road? Because chickens hadn't been evolved yet. So I know, grown.
That's funny.
I
like those corny jokes, though. I'm really funny. I like funny jokes.
Yeah, no, what do you call a group of dinosaurs who sing? A tyrannochorus. I mean, they're bad. They are bad.
They're so bad, they're funny. I love it.
Or what do you call a dinosaur who is a noisy sleeper? A tyrannosaurus, things like that.
That would be me, a tyrannosaurus.
Snorris, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Why? Why? Which reindeer do dinosaurs want to avoid? Comet. So there's a bunch more, but they are corny. And this is fun. I have a dinosaur cookie recipe. I like to bake, and they're plain butter cookies. And if you take a big dinosaur like this one and you just stamp them, you can have fossil or dinosaur footprint cookies. So
what a great idea. I love it. My grandsons would love it. They have the little dinosaurs like that, and little T-Rex with his tiny little arms. And so that's I'll try that.
Yeah, no, I have all this stuff from my kid. I mean, there's like little dinosaurs. As I said, we had them growing up too. I think most kids have one or many toy dinosaurs when they're little. We go through that phase. And it's something that is of interest to so many people.
So, Michele, you've written about animals, climate, and science. Do you think Jurassic Girl might be the start of a new series highlighting other girls or women or young boys or men in STEM?
I think for me, Jurassic Girl is one and done because it's about MaryAnning. I am working on a second book. It's also historical fiction. It's about the first World War I service dog that His name was Stubby. If you go to DC to the American History Museum, his former owner had Stubby when he died stuffed. I find that kind of weird. Taxidermy is kind of creepy, but anyway, that's just that's my opinion. But the Stubby story is pretty fascinating. A corporal found him. This man enlisted in the army in Connecticut. When there were base camps when we joined in World War I, there were base camps all over the United States, and this base camp happened to be at Yale University. A lot of the soldiers would go into the mess tent, and outside the mess tent were stray dogs waiting for scraps. There was this one dog that captured this soldier's heart, and he smuggled him on a boat heading to France to be part of the troop. And, this was a dangerous thing. The dog, if he was captured, he could have been thrown overboard. They did not have dogs. I mean, I believe in the UK, they were starting to train dogs. As we know, dogs have a better sense of smell than we do. They can smell, gas from a gas attack way before we can. This dog saved his troop numerous times. He captured a German spy. There was a mustard gas attack. He woke up the men in the trenches. It was honored by 3 U.S. presidents. The dog is a big deal. So, and I think,
dogs are amazing. In fact, I'm a retired rehabilitation counselor as well as an educator. And so there are a lot of service animals for our persons with disabilities, and they're training and they're just so smart. For example, our veterans of war, when they would have those triggers and flashbacks, the dogs were trained to, put their paws up on their shoulders and lick their face to bring them back to present moment, Yep. And it's just amazing. They're just amazing. So where are you in the process of the second book, and when are you expecting to publish it?
I just finished it and I gave it to my agent, and I'm waiting. So and I don't, a lot of people aren't aware that writing a book, yes, you're in your office and you're by yourself, but you're not doing it by yourself, or at least I am not. I had the good fortune I used to belong to a journalism organization, and I met 2 incredibly good writers, and one of these writers is like the best copy editor I know. We had all exchanged manuscripts when I was working on Jurassic Girl, and we're used to criticism. We're used to editors saying, "Really? No, that's not good." So our feelings were not hurt. I mean, we weren't mean or anything, but we were honest, and this needs to be fixed. This is working. This is where you need to move and go. I mean, these books are easier. I'm starting now on my first full fiction book, and I'm a little stuck. I have to really go back and work on it. MaryAnning had a beginning, middle, and end, and I knew how to fill it in. I had a lot of facts. So it's like writing a very big newspaper magazine article. Same thing with this dog, Stubby. I did all this research. And when I was in college, I was very lucky. I interned at the Time Life building in their research department, and I got a very good education. And I love research. I really, really love research. What breaks my heart is that a lot of newspapers, when I started, every publication I worked for had, or pretty much every publication had, a research department. That was like one of the first things to go. As a journalist, I've learned to take pictures. Yes, I can take a picture with my cell phone. Am I as good as a professional photographer? No, I'm not. I long for those old days where there was a research team, and even though there's a research team, you need to, as a journalist, make sure your copy is clean and it's correct and it's honest. It has to be that. Old school. So. That's
Yeah, so Michele, you have a lot of diverse writing experience for different types of publications and genres. What would you advise? Because a lot of my subscribers are authors or inspiring writers. They want to write their own story or write a fiction story. What would you advice could you give an inspiring or aspiring author?
I mean, you have to look at what you're doing. When I first started, after I graduated from college, I sent out 100 resumes because I wanted to be a journalist. Nobody would hire me except this daily in southern Louisiana. And I said southern Louisiana. We all know Louisiana's down south. I was in the tip. I was in the bayou. If I went any further, I'd be in the water. So I was covering, school board, police beat, whatever the community needed, we covered. But when I came back to New York, because that was home, and I worked for Fairchild Publication. You might have heard of Women's Wear Daily. I did not work for them. I worked for their sister publication, Home Furnishings Daily, which suited me better. I'm not into the high fashion. The interior design was beautiful. I liked it a lot. And I was there for about 3.5 years. And then I started freelancing and writing about everything from building homes to interior design or new fashions and stuff, anything having to do with the home. And then from there, I thought, this is nice, but I'm tired of this. So let's see, the home, what's in the home. And I could write about animals, pets. I could write about health. I mean, there's always like a thread going from A to B to C. So it's looking at what you want to do. If you want to do strict fiction, whatever that is, be it a fantasy, historic fiction, whatever. I think it's important to have other writers to bounce ideas off of. I think for me, it is. I'm not going to do this in my own little world by myself. And there were times that it's like, really, you didn't like that part? I wish you did. But no, they were right. They were absolutely right. I am thrilled. I am so lucky that I have good writer friends and we are able to help each other. And yes, it's time consuming, but if you want to do this, you have to take the time and really think and plot out and see where your story goes. And there are people that I like to plot out. I like to have a beginning, middle, end, and then you could fill in. Or other people are like, well, I'm going to start here and the characters are going to take me. And I'm like, that's good for somebody else. That didn't work for me. So
Is that called seat of the pants writing?
Possibly. Yeah, it sounds correct.
Well, Michele, it's interesting too because I can relate. I have 3 nonfiction books and 4 fiction books, and for me it was easier to write the nonfiction books just because, as you said with MaryAnning, you had a lot of facts and you just had to fill in the middle bits and pieces, right? Whereas fiction, it had to come from here, right? And develop the whole story plot line, the characters, their quirks, everything, and then the narratives as well. So are you finding yourself getting stuck anywhere because you're writing, basically your next book is based on a true story too as well. Right. So when you were writing dialogue for Mary, did you get stuck anywhere?
No, I just kind of imagine what brother and sister would be like. And from reading, looking at websites, but reading The Fossil Hunter is strict biography. And as I said, I like biographies, but I prefer a story. I do read biographies. I just prefer based on, and my favorite movies are based on a true story. But I thought, how would they, there was a story that I read about MaryAnning where she was at she was a baby and she got struck by lightning. The nurse, there was a nurse there that was holding her, and Mary got struck. And for some reason, she got stronger. I know that, you know, they had to dip her in water and heal her. But the fact that, you know, as I said, I found the facts, but what would it be like? What would this festival be like that she was attending? And that all was made up, but that wasn't that difficult. I kind of figured, you know, I've gone to festivals, I've gone to outdoor fairs, and just talking, and she seemed to be enamored with fossil hunting, and that's where, you know, when she became friends with Elizabeth Philpott, who was older, they were very, very close friends. The age didn't matter. It was they loved talking about fossil hunting. They loved talking about the hunt. It was something that was passionate. And when you're passionate about something, how do you express that? So that part wasn't as difficult as, I think, making up something totally new that didn't happen.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree. So tell me now, Michele, here's a question, because I've always asked my students, I give them a imaginary time travel machine. So if you could go back and witness one scientific discovery, which would it be?
Well, it would definitely be her finding the ichthyosaurus in the cliffs. I mean, just imagine seeing that. And actually, that horrible weather helped. They would, you know, being so close, the poorer people lived closer to the ocean because, you know, you were safer higher up. The first floor of her house would be flooded. And the storms would take rocks and kind of move things from, you know, open the cliffs more to reveal maybe the ichthyosaurus or something else in the cliffs. It's, you know, when the asteroid hit, many animals did not survive. So just finding that, you know, seeing her, can you imagine, you know, and that's what I had to do. I had to imagine her discovering this, like the first time you see something. I mean, I get excited, as I said, geekiness here, when I go outside and if I see a bird. I mean, we have a lot of red-winged blackbirds, and some of them even have yellow bands. And it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, that makes me happy. That makes me really happy.
So I love animals too, and your experiences with being in the zoo at such a young age is so cool. So you said the hippopotamus was like a water horse. I can imagine how huge they are in real life. But what, after all your research, writing the book, would be your favorite dinosaur?
I like the Stegosaurus. I just saw it at the Museum of Natural History. I mean, there's so many. There are so many. We'll hang up and I'll say, oh, I should have said the whatever. I don't know if I have, you know, people also ask me, what are my favorite animals? Well, I live with a cat. I love cats. I grew up with dogs. I don't want to own a bird, but I get a thrill. I mean, in my next life, if that ever was possible, I'd love to come back as a birder. And I always think, well, maybe I could spend some time birding. I would love to do that. I just, it's thrilling seeing them. For me, it just, it's a happy space for me. It's just, you go out and I mean, my form of exercise, you're not going to find me at a gym. It's just not me. I love taking walks, and I live in a small enough town. There are parks, and once in a while you'll see a rabbit or a deer, and it's like, oh, look, yay. I'm happy.
I'm the same way. I've got one of those bird apps, and you hear all these different birds turtling along, and oh, it's a this or it's a that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's very cool. So, Michele, are there any parting words that you would like to leave our listeners with today? Any words of wisdom or reflections about writing your book, or what do you have for us?
If somebody, you know, just to read, find something that you're interested in and pick up a book and read, learn about something that could be new to you or something that you're passionate about. I just, in my neighborhood also, we have these little free libraries. I don't know if you are aware of those. I mean, that is like, the other day there was, my son and I went to the No Kings protest, and I was like, wait a minute, there's a little free library. He goes, Mom, we're going. It's like, okay. And I go to the library a lot, and we're very lucky. There's a new bookstore that just opened in town. It's a kids bookstore, yay. And then the next town that I can walk to has a bookstore. It has everything there. So read, my dad's no longer alive, but, I still hear his voice of, it's important to read. So.
I think I would have gotten along with your father really well, and you as well, because as a child, I always had a pack of books that I would climb up into my tree and I would read all afternoon in my tree. So they'd always say, "Where's Elizabeth? She's in her tree reading a book."
Was this like a tree fort house or something?
Yeah, well, actually, my grandpa just put steps going up a big, huge mulberry tree, but it had branches like in a V, so I could sit in that little crook, right? And I could hang my little lunch. My grandma would pack me a little lunch. I could hang it up there and read my book. And then it had this long branch, and I would sleep like Snoopy over the branch and fall asleep like this. Yeah, love books. Love books. It's no wonder we're authors, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's a thrill. It really is. It's a good thing to do. I like watching movies, but sometimes it's like, nope, I'm going to turn this off. I have a book. And I found a book the other day at the little free library. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like a little gem.
I could spend hours in a library or a bookstore just sitting on the floor and just getting lost in a book, So that is so cool. Definitely great advice for everyone out there. Pick up Michelle's book and start there. So Michele, thank you so much for joining us and breathing life into MaryAnning's extraordinary legacy through Jurassic Girl. We're walking away inspired and ready to dig deeper into the past to find strength for the future. And to my amazing listeners, thank you for spending time with us today. If you love this conversation and want more interviews with remarkable authors, be sure to like this video, hit that bell for notifications, and don't forget to subscribe to Gimme 5, book review, and author interviews. New interviews are always on the horizon, so we'll see you on the next one. Michele, thank you so much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. This was delightful. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Hopefully we'll see you on the next book, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Bye for now.
Thanks. Bye.